Getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me from 9 p.m. to midnight every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello and welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. There's still no Mark Dolan though, he's still in rehab. So I, Leo Kearse, will be guiding you through the final show before he returns. In my opinion, why the net zero green agenda and its activists are directly responsible for the energy crisis and should be banned from using energy themselves. This winter they should turn the heating off, chuck a jacket on and let vulnerable people have the gas they would have used. With the RAF stopping hiring white men, are diversity targets making Britain systemically racist against white people? And we have another knockout panel with a surprise extra member. We'll also be discussing if it's ever right to take the law into your own hands, how often you should actually shower, and if you won the lottery, would you leave your spouse and run off with the money? One woman did this week. Of course, we have all tomorrow's papers at 10:30 and another awesome game show. All that and more after the news with Simon Pusey. Hope I pronounced that right.
Hello, I'm Simon Pusey in the GB Newsroom. Police investigating the murder of Olivia Pratt-Corbell have warned that anyone withholding information is protecting killers. The 9-year-old was shot by a gunman on Monday when he chased his intended target into her home in Liverpool. 2 men who were arrested on suspicion of murder have been released on bail, with one of them being recalled to prison for breaching the terms of his licence. Merseyside police are urging anyone with any information to come forward, saying silence is not an option.
We've got a 9-year-old girl who won't celebrate her 18th birthday. She won't celebrate her wedding. She won't have children of her own. If you've got information and you're withholding it, you're protecting the killers. We need your information.
The appeal there from Merseyside police. A huge package of financial support has been promised by the government to help struggling households through the energy crisis. The Prime Minister has written an article in the Daily Mail where he acknowledged bills are going to be eye-watering and the next few months are going to be tough. He said colossal sums of taxpayers' money is already being used to help people, and his successor will announce more support in the next month. Well, the two Tory leadership candidates are yet to reveal exactly how they plan to ease the cost of living crisis. Rishi Sunak's team has criticised reports that Liz Truss plans to cut VAT by 5%, describing it as incredibly regressive. It's understood the Foreign Secretary has discussed a nuclear option with her advisers, which would reportedly save the average household more than £1,300 a year. Mr Sunak's campaign says the move would cost more than £30 billion. West Yorkshire police say they have launched an investigation after a suspected drug-related death of a 16-year-old boy at Leeds Festival. The teenager was taken to the medical tent after falling ill and was then taken to hospital before being pronounced dead. While the exact cause of his death is yet to be established, one line of inquiry is that he had taken ecstasy. Victims of the Grenfell Tower disaster are being remembered at the Notting Hill Carnival. Members of the Emancipated Run crew wore green T-shirts as the event returned to the streets of West London for the first time since 2019. Paying tribute to the 72 people who died in the fire, survivor Zoe Dainton told the crowd there's been little progress since the Grenfell inquiry.
5 years, still no justice, still no charges, not much change. And despite what happened at Grenfell, and despite endless evidence that came out of the inquiry, those responsible, including the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, seem to be suffering from amnesia and are acting like it's business as usual.
NASA's new space program is on course to launch its first mission to the moon. Conditions are expected to be favourable tomorrow, with the unmanned Artemis 1 due to lift off just after 1:30 UK time. If all goes well, astronauts will be back on the moon for the first time in over 50 years. The ultimate goal is to create a base camp. NASA test director Jeff Spaulding says so far everything's going to plan.
Bottom line is we look really good, no issues, no concerns or constraints from the lightning events at this point. We've done the battery charging on both Orion and the core stage. Those are complete. So that's all going really well and all as planned and on schedule.
TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight with Leo.
Thank you for the news, Simon. Hello and welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. But like I say, there's still no Mark Dolan, so I, Leo Kearse, will be guiding you through the final show before he triumphantly returns. In the big question, we'll be asking if diversity targets are actually fair. In my big opinion, why the Green Agenda and its activists can simply do one. As always, we have top-class paper review bang on at 10:30, and that's certainly not one to miss. And throughout the programme, in the news agendas, we'll be asking if it's ever acceptable to go vigilante and take the law into your own hands. How often do we actually shower? And what would you do with a lottery win? Plus, are you still judged for having tattoos? And with me throughout the show is my brilliant all-star panel of Olympian and national treasure, Mr. Chris Akabusi, political commentator Sophie Corcoran, and a newcomer to the show, top blues musician Todd Sharpville, and he's accompanied by his dog, Genghis. As always, we want to hear from you, so keep your emails and tweets coming in and we'll read them out as we go. And as Mark always said, we don't do boring. That's the name of the game. So let's get cracking with tonight's show. Let's start with this. I've got to be honest, I'm just not that bothered about the environment. The Green lobby say it's got another 40 years left. That'll do me. I don't believe them anyway. I've never understood why people pay attention to the Green Party, Extinction Rebellion, Just Stop Oil, and all the other green activists. Their ideas are straight out of a cannabis-infused sixth form common room, along with communism and wearing socks with sandals. They want to change the weather by stopping us from travelling, eating meat, or having any fun whatsoever. They want to increase taxes and hand massive power to the government. And they're constantly warning us the world is about to end. But the deadline keeps passing. And guess what? The world is still miraculously here. And their tactics are insufferable. They block roads, they dig tunnels, they commit criminal damage and act as a nuisance to people trying to earn a living and go about their lives. These tactics wouldn't work in Scotland, by the way. I saw them on the news. They're gluing their hands like this to buses in Trafalgar Square. If you glued your hands like that to a bus in Glasgow, within about 30 seconds, somebody would come up behind you, nick your mobile phone and pump you in the bum. That bus wouldn't move for about 3 weeks. Everybody in Glasgow would have a go on your bum. Like your bum would have its own TripAdvisor page. When people got bored having sex with it, they use it for parking their bikes and keeping their tea towels tidy. And environmentalists think that they're above the law. This week, Just Stop Oil were filmed smashing up a petrol station. Listen, I'm old enough to remember when white hooligans smashing up an ethnic minority business would be considered a crime. But while the police are busy dancing the Macarena at a pride parade or arresting people for tweets, climate hooligans feel free to break the law with impunity. We have a two-tier policing system in this country where people with woke opinions are seemingly above the law, while the rest of us can't even fart in our own homes without having our doors kicked in by the offence police. Even worse, instead of locking these idiots up, our supposedly conservative government listens to them and says, "That's a good idea," so we stop drilling for oil and gas. The development of the massive Cambo oil field in the North Sea was shelved. Fracking, proven to be a safe and clean source of gas, was banned. Instead of drilling for fuel in Britain to provide energy security, our government, like all governments in Western Europe, decided that we should stop investing in our own oil and gas and move to powering our society with windmills and solar panels and good intentions. And while we waited for the capabilities of green energy to catch up with our dreams, we could depend on fuel from Russia. From an environmental point of view, this is idiotic. Russia is a dictatorship, so has terrible environmental regulations and oversight. And transporting oil that far increases the risk of devastating spills. People worry about food miles, the carbon footprint of food brought across the sea from other countries, but what about the carbon footprint of shipping oil from Russia instead of getting it out of our own backyard? If a tanker of avocados capsizes, you don't get environmentally devastating avocado slicks along the coastline and seals dying from avocados stuck in their fur. Why do greenies warn us about food miles but seem to be fine with oil miles? And with the Western world totally dependent on him for energy, Putin has us over a barrel of crude oil. Invading Ukraine sent gas prices sky high. And because we have no other option, Western Europe has been forced to pay these skyrocketing prices. Germany has paid Russia over 50 billion euros for gas during the course of the Ukraine war, which is paying for Putin's mercenaries to rape and pillage in Ukraine. It makes me wonder if Germany will ever be on the right side in a war. Somebody warned us of Western Europe's dependency on Russian energy, by the way. It was Donald Trump. And German politicians laughed at him. But here we are in 2022 with Putin invading Europe and using Europe's dependency on Russian gas to pay for it. Which makes me wonder, are British environmental activists funded by the Kremlin? The leader of the Scottish Green Party, Patrick Harvey, they're in a ruling coalition with the Scottish Nationalist Party, has said that anyone who wants to drill for oil in the North Sea is a far-right extremist. Green lobbyists are actively working to weaken the United Kingdom and helping Putin win the war in Ukraine. This winter, things will get harsh in the UK. People will die. Other people will want to die, but won't be able to afford enough gas to put their head in the oven. And all because green idiots hypnotised our complacent governments into pursuing this net zero nonsense. Anyone who supports net zero should do the decent thing this winter and refuse to use any of our scarce energy so that vulnerable people who need it can heat their homes. In fact, if Just Stop Oil are so worried about carbon footprints, they can reduce their own carbon footprint to zero by going to live in the sea. With me now and joining me throughout my show is my all-star panel. We've got Olympian and national treasure Mr. Chris Akabusi, political commentator Sophie Corcoran, and a newcomer to the show, musician Todd Sharpville, and he's accompanied by his dog Genghis. Hello, Genghis. After the break. All right. Hi, Todd. It's great to see you. I understand you've got an album out right now.
I do, yeah. Medication Time on Dixie Frog Records. Came out just last month.
Nice. Do we have a clip, actually? Well, we don't have a clip, sorry. I thought we might. And I take it you don't have a guitar, you've just brought your dog. You can't pull off some licks.
I'm not that guy at the party who turns up with a guitar and then...
You don't want to be that guy.
Takes everyone to the kitchen.
But you've played with the greats. You've played with Clapton. Who else have you played blues with?
I started out my career putting together backing bands for visiting American artists. So Ike Turner, Howling Wolf's guitarist Hubert Sumlin, a whole host of people, By the Smith, who used to play with Muddy Waters. I was mentored by a guy from San Francisco called Joe Louis Walker, and was kind of, as a kid, the black American blues scene was what turned me on, and it drove a path into the future, brought me here with Genghis.
Great, nice one. What do you think of Just Stop Oil and the green activists? Do you think I'm right in claiming that they're responsible for the energy crisis?
There's a lot of truth in the argument. There are actually so many spurious statistics when it comes down to the environment, where both sides of the coin actually, in certain instances, have validity. But what concerns me the most, to be honest, is the fact that it's, like so many other popular narratives these days, has become something that you're only supposed to side with the mainstream narrative. And if you don't, you're vilified.
Yeah.
And debate, opinion, and research and scrutiny. I mean, you know, anything to do with science, especially. I mean, scrutiny is what was supposed to have brought us through the Enlightenment and brought us to today.
Yeah.
And yet now we turn our back on scrutiny because populist opinion is the most important thing.
Yeah. And Sophie, I saw you nodding your head. Welcome to the show, by the way. But do you think what Just Stop Oil and other environmental activists is fair? They're stopping people going about their business. They're digging tunnels under roads. This week they're smashing up a petrol station.
Well, look, I live in a place called Thurrock in Essex, which is where all of the oil terminals are, and they have literally held my community to ransom. And I'm not even joking. What they've done is they've dug tunnels underneath our roads. They've dug up our road surfacing. They've consistently, for at least the last 6 months, probably to the last year, glued themselves to the M25s or inroads in Thurrock. And unfortunately, because of the road infrastructure and how it works in Thurrock, if there is even a little bit of traffic, the whole thing becomes gridlocked. People, including myself and my parents and my neighbours and my community, are no longer able to get to work. Our bin collections have had to be delayed because they can't get to the bin ports because they've utterly decimated our roads, which is really environmental, by the way. You're an environmental activist, yet now my roads are going to have to be strewn across with rubbish because of your stupid activism. They've cost our council so much money, and that money is supposed to be going to our services, to our schools, to the most vulnerable people in my community that need that money to help them get through the cost of living crisis. But instead, it's going to be picking after these little rats that are trying to, glue themselves to our road. And it's just so frustrating. And the thing that annoys me the most, Leo, is I spoke to them, and they're from the likes of Norwich, they're from the likes of Cambridge. So unless they've rowed down the River Thames, they've used oil to get to Thurrock. So I don't get what gives them the right, and almost how dare they come to my community and hold my community to ransom and make our lives hell for the last 6 months. Innocent working class people that have absolutely nothing to do with any of the decisions. We have no power over any of these decisions. They've come to my community, held us to ransom, made our life hell, when they themselves haven't got their own homes in order. The glues that they're using has got oil in it. They're coming here, the clothes they're wearing have got oils in it. But one of my favourite things they ever did was they chained themselves to a tanker, and it was a cement tanker, not an oil tanker. So clearly they're not very brainy either.
Oh my God, that's amazing. So Chris, we heard from Sophie there. She's obviously very much on the fence. She sees, the good that these environmental activists are doing. What do you think yourself? And it's great to speak to you, by the way. Oh my God, you're a legend of sport and broadcasting.
Well, I don't know about that, Leo, but fantastic monologue. I laughed so much at so many of your wonderful little quips there. Look, they've obviously got some sort of point and some sort of grievance, but they're going about it the wrong way. They're obviously very, very desperate to do some of the things that Sophie was saying that in her community. But criminal damage is criminal damage. I don't understand how we are so tolerant that these people don't get locked up. You have got a right to protest. I understand that. But you haven't got a right to damage other people's property. You haven't got the right to stop the general public from going to work. There are some, that you have to, these rights that we have in the United Kingdom are also balanced off with responsibility to your fellow citizens within the United Kingdom. I'm not necessarily on the climate agenda's bandwagon. I really can't think that the little human bipods that are walking around this earth can really disturb the ecosystem of the planet. I'm sure the planet will shrug us off way before the planet itself falls apart. But I do understand that they've got anxiety. I do understand that they're desperate. And if you really, really, really thought that the world's going to end in the next 10 minutes, you might want to do something about it. I guess these guys really believe that.
Yeah, they could do something about it by gluing themselves to their own driveway and not driving all the way to Thurrock. And here's the thing, people claim that they're scared of climate change. Well, we've got the likes of Prince Harry, who literally flew to a polo game, the royal family. If any of them were actually scared of climate change, you would think, and it's the same thing with COVID, with our government, if they were actually scared, they would alter their own actions. And that includes for them, stop owning multiple houses, multiple cars and multiple planes, or COVID, stop partying. But here's the thing, they will fly everywhere. They'll go to their polo games, they'll go to their favourite restaurants, but God forbid, someone like me or you wants to go to Benidorm once a year, if we're lucky, which we can't afford to right now because of them, we all of a sudden become the people that are responsible for climate change. They want us to believe that us with our once-a-year flights, our one house, our one car, are somehow more responsible for climate change than they are. And it's not true. And I'm not going to feel guilty for doing things and living like a normal human being and heating my home while they get to live the way that they are. And none of them care. If you think Greta Thunberg or the World Economic Forum cares about the fact that people in our country can't heat their homes or can't eat or can't get to work, they don't. None of them do. So it's about time we stop idolising these people and encouraging them, because they don't care how me and you live. They're not struggling to pay their bills at all. It's us that are.
And it does sort of undermine their argument. We see so many people who have been so vociferous in the climate change argument, saying we need to cut down on our fossil fuel usage and restrict flights and all the rest of it, such as the Obamas, then buying a house, a multi-million-pound house at sea level. And if they're so certain sea levels are going to rise, they're either very confident that we can reverse this, or they don't mind losing whatever it is, $50 million house to rising sea levels. Also, and I'd like to ask Todd about this. We've seen a lot of the climate change activists. They stop, working class people going to work. All the climate change activists I've seen seem to be super posh and super white.
Like most things to do, when we look at the culture war and we look at that side of the argument, so much activism seems to come from posh, white, middle class people who very loudly like to speak and project on behalf of working class Joe. And they forget that, the working class majority is effectively the backbone of any single Western democracy. If we believe in meritocracy and if we believe in democracy, this sense of this Western liberal freedom was created on the pretext that finally working class Joe was going to be able to have a say and be able to predetermine how things are run. So to have this going on, as Sophie's eloquently pointed out, in terms of an elitist minority who are effectively dictating to everybody how they're supposed to live, who don't share the same values as working class Joe, and who don't understand what working class Joe has to go through on a daily basis, to sort of arrogantly tell him what to do. And in the meantime, and besides which, to get back to my original point, my main concern is that Sophie's not burned as a witch, effectively, for saying what she said. And we're living in times when we're not too far away from stuff like that happening.
Yeah. No, I believe it. And
it's happening figuratively already.
I'd also like to get the opinion. I'd like to go outside the human realm and just get a quick opinion from Genghis. Genghis, are you there?
Genghis, what do you think? Well, it sent the whole conversation sent him to sleep. I feel his pain, Yeah,
and he's not too worried about rising energy prices because he's got a built-in fur coat. Anyway, on that note, we're going to have to go to the break. See you in a couple of minutes.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan Tonight with me, Leo Kearse, tonight. And I'm joined by my panel. I've got here Sophie Corcoran. I've got Olympian legend and broadcasting legend Chris Akabusi and blues musician Todd Sharpville. I feel like I should have had something to describe you as, but you're only about 20 years old, so I guess you haven't had a chance to win an Olympic medal yet. But anyway.
Got a Blue Peter badge.
You've got a Blue Peter badge. Well, that is how you're going to be known from now. And we're also joined by Genghis, of course, who's there lying on his back, having his belly rubbed, which I would also like to do. I've got some emails from viewers. Helen says, "Oh, a doggy on the sofa, fabulous." So I'm assuming she's talking about Genghis there. And responding to the green agenda issue we were discussing, Janice says, "I've just watched the clip of the lady damaging the petrol pumps. Does she not realise that she is wearing plastic glasses derived from oil? Funny that she has a high vis on too." This is exactly what we're talking about, Sophie. There's the hypocrisy of environmental protesters. We saw Greenpeace going out to try and stop drilling in the North Sea. They were literally in those inflatable speedboats, which are made from plastic as well, made from synthetic materials, and they were burning oil. They were burning diesel to do it. It's like, why are you burning diesel to try and stop other people from using diesel? If diesel is so unnecessary, if we really don't need to dig it out of the Earth's crust, then why don't you ride a horse out in the North Sea or do it some other way? Nicholas says, "Hi Leo, the Hunga Tonga Hunga Hapai volcano," blimey, that's a mouthful, "spewed vapour, not ash, as it's underwater. Vapour is a greenhouse gas. It will act as a magnifier in the atmosphere and warm the Earth for up to a decade. There is 15% more vapour in the atmosphere than usual. We'd better get used to sweating for a while." Great. I mean, do you think, just go to my panel here, do you think the natural things that happen in the Earth, like volcanoes, do you think they have a big impact?
Well, I mean, look, there are always patterns, weather patterns, the elliptical nature of the orbits. And so sometimes it's a little bit warmer, sometimes a little bit colder, depending upon how things are orbiting. There are always going to be winds and hurricanes and volcanic eruptions. I don't know how many billions of years the planet's been here.
Yeah.
But it seemed to have survived all of that sort of stuff, and it will do way after we are gone.
Yeah. And John says, "Touch our vehicles or pump I'm using, or me, and you will need medical treatment urgently." I don't know if that was a request or a warning. Anyway, It's time now for the big question in which we tackle a major news story of the day. Last week, news broke that the RAF were to pause hiring white men because the Air Force was not hitting diversity targets of 30% women and 20% ethnic minorities. The female officer who headed the RAF's recruitment processes quit over the debacle, stating it would be unlawful to hire based on characteristics rather than ability to pass RAF selection criteria. Speaking to The Times, Recruitment Chief Maria Byford said she was not ashamed of prioritising the selection based on ethnicity and gender, as this was a good thing. But the RAF has come under fire by some for appearing to prioritise diversity over defence, echoing what's happening in institutions and businesses across the UK as organisations are led by equality, diversity and inclusion. People talk about systemic racism, but does the RAF hiring show that it does exist, but it actually exists against white people in the UK? And our push for equality, diversity and inclusion, is it weakening Britain and leading to unfairness? Now, Sophie, I'm pretty sure you've got a strongly held opinion about this, so I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I mean, I am pretty sick and tired of a white person of being discriminated against because I am white. And this obsession with diversity isn't good. It is frankly dangerous, and I'll tell you why. Because the least likely people to go to a Russell Group university are white people. White working class people are the most left behind in education. Do you think we get any diversity schemes? Do you think we get any bursaries? No. However, the obsession with diversity is even worse than that, because this obsession with diversity has led to the raping of thousands and thousands of young girls in the likes of Rochford, in the likes of Rochdale, in the likes of, Telford, because of diversity. So the obsession with diversity is causing for white people can no longer get jobs, they can no longer go to their university, or they're the least likely to go to university. It enabled them to be raped and to have crimes committed against them all the time, and we can't intervene because of diversity. None of that is good. And it is about time. This is systematic racism. The idea of systematic racism is people not being able to progress because of the colour of their skin, and not being able to get jobs, and not being able to go to top universities and progress in social mobility-wise because of the colour of their skin. And that is exactly what's happening to white people.
Yeah,
and I'm so tired of it.
And I think
it's racism.
You definitely shouldn't be discriminated against on the basis of the colour of your skin. They should discriminate against you on the basis of your personality. But Chris,
we had colour of my hair over
joke
here.
there.
Ginge discrimination. My missus is a ginge.
It's all fair game when it comes to gingers. Like, you could literally stab a ginger and it's fine because they're ginger. Like,
Chris, what do you make of the RAF diversity targets?
I can't believe that the white people are not getting into the Russell Group's universities. I just can't believe that. So we'd really like to know, Sophie, where you got that stat from.
Proportionally. It's not that they're not getting into them, it's that as a proportion in comparison to the number of white people.
It's a subset of the demographic, so white working class rather than...
Okay.
So I think if you're posh, you can still go to Durham.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot of posh people from public schools going to Russell Group universities. Look, in 2016, there was a survey done in the FTSE 100, top 100 companies. And there were 17 managing directors, CEOs, called John.
Right.
And there were 7 women. Now, you're not telling me that there are more intellectual, bright, striving, hard-working Johns than there are women. Now, I don't know how that's changed, but it has changed. So, I'm not a...
And we're in an economic catastrophe.
I'm not diversity czar, but if you just look at us here on this platform today, we've got a 20-year-old young lady who's very articulate and putting a point across. We've got
middle-aged white man.
What's what you say?
Yeah, exactly.
You're only as old as the woman you feel.
And we've got an old black guy. We've got an old black guy, 63 on the stage. Now, I don't think we would be on this settee 40 years ago. So...
Well, Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister then.
Yes, of course, well, she wasn't 40 years ago, but it doesn't matter. I mean, the thing is that what I'm trying to say is that there's always been discrimination, but previously it was well-educated, white, wealthy people that had all the top jobs. Now, I am very grateful that I've lived in a world where I'm able to work and sustain my family, and I've been given opportunities. So what I'm not going to do is pull up the ladder and say no to everybody else. However, I do agree, it's absurd, because I want the best surgeon, I want the best technician.
Do you not think it's racist, though? Do you not think positive diversity is racist in two forms? One, it's racist against the white people that no longer are being able to get jobs and get into university. But two, it's also racist to the people that they're saying, oh, because you're black, you can't do it on yourself, you need a hand up, we must save you.
I'm just going to interrupt you there, because we're actually joined by Spike journalist Sam Ashworth-Hayes, who has written about the subject, as well as Julian Richard, the Managing Director of Extents and appointed member to the Government Commission Socio-Economic Diversity Task Force. Let's bring in... what do you two make of this?
Cool one.
Me first, or Julian? Or?
Happy to begin. Well, look, the business case for better workforce representation across all the diversity strands is well documented. Diversity, equity, inclusion, it's not just the right thing to do, it's also the smart thing to do. It's a performance prerogative, both at the individual level, in terms of companies, but also at the macro level. Again, for so many years, it's been well documented. The McGregor-Smith report back in 2017 underlined that better workforce representation and progression could give the UK economy a boost of £24 billion. And what we do know from a target setting perspective is that this is a proven market correction tool that addresses the frustratingly slow pace of change that we all want to see. And it helps organisations to really measure what they treasure. All we're talking about, it's important not to weaponize this or get too political. It's an appropriate tool, a stretch target, which it generates the will to change for the better. It prompts persistence over the long term and ensures accountability at that organizational level. And, Chris referenced statistics. I think it's very important to be rooted in evidence when we form our opinions. A real case in point was delivered just last year. The Women in Finance Charter published a 5-year review of its gender balancing targets. And the single biggest takeaway was that the very act of target setting had by far the largest impact on increasing female representation across the sector during a 5-year period. And so it's so important that that best practice is adopted elsewhere.
But these targets, they seem unworkable in a certain way, because, the diversity targets were for 20% ethnic minority representation in the RAF. Now, the UK is only 87%. It's 87% white, so 13% ethnic minority. So if everywhere has to hire 20%, that's going to be more ethnic minority people than we've got.
Well, it's a great case in point. And again, a key takeaway from the review of the Women in Finance Charter is that it's so important to allow organisations to set their own targets. And what might be relevant within one sector or industry may not be relevant to another. And listen, any outrage to solutions like target setting are sadly down to the quite misguided belief that our current starting point is that people progress purely on merit and their hard work within the workplace, regardless of their background or their identity. But in reality, we know that fairness is not the status quo. There are consistent inequities in workforce outcomes, in the UK in particular, and significant progression gaps based on your identity. We know that meritocracy as a starting point is a myth, and so diversity targets are a form of market correction that are simply there to ensure employers are benefiting from the widest pool of available talent.
So, Sam, I'll come to you. Do you think that that this is just a market correction, that by being embedding racism against white people or embedding, a bias towards a certain demographic, we're just fixing an existing bias? Can you really fight bias with bias?
So I would not describe what the RAF is doing as a market correction mechanism, because it's not really a market. This isn't a sort of a single employer, which is part of a government agency, which is not really subject to market pressures on the demand side for what it does, making its hiring choices. And what they've basically done is they've been given these particular targets for diversity, and as this is now a clear requirement for the HR people to sort of achieve their goals in a given year and receive their pay packets, they're starting to over-prioritize it. And so what we've basically had with this statement saying, okay, it's better to recruit too few people for the RAF than to recruit the right number of people but in the wrong proportion, is that they're basically getting a problem whereby the applications they're getting are predominantly from sort of one particular group relative to the general population. And instead of fixing that is quite a slow process. You have to try and get more people to come into this job. You can't force them to do it. So instead of focusing their efforts on that, what they've tried to do is fix it in the short term, and they've tried to fix it by skewing the ratios by simply taking in fewer people. And that's obviously ridiculous, but it's a sort of thing that you will get when you try and meet these targets without a clear pressure to actually deliver the goods. If you're in a market environment, if you're sort of a capitalistic firm subject to shareholder pressures and subject to a profit motive, that's probably not the sort of action you're going to get. So if these companies are setting internal targets which they don't actually have to hit, then it should probably shake out in a more reasonable way. I mean, the other sort of point to make about this is if it does turn out that diversity is best for businesses, and over a long term, we would expect the more diverse businesses to do better and for people to get the message. And if it turns out the way it's been implemented with targets and quotas turns out to be less effective, then those companies will go bust and will sort of correct the other way. So in a marketplace, you don't end up with this sort of extreme pattern behavior the RF is currently displaying.
And Julian, I mean, doesn't that make sense? I mean, surely if you're hiring for the RAF, if you're hiring a fighter pilot, you want the best fighter pilot, not a fighter pilot who fits some sort of demographic bias that would correct an existing perceived demographic bias.
Yeah, you're absolutely. It is a search for the best. And that's one of the key problems here, that actually employers are missing out on the widest pool of available talent, the best people. You see, targets are never about lowering the bar. They're all about widening the gate. And so,
well, just to interrupt you there, the RAF
organization should never result in someone of lesser ability being chosen over someone with greater.
But the RAF, just to interrupt you there, the RAF specifically said they're going to pause hiring white men. So, I mean, that is kind of reducing the pool of available talent.
When you zoom out from the headlines, we recognise that the RAF are utilising a very underutilised tool, Section 158 of the Equality Act, that allows organisations to do what's best for business and take these kinds of targets set up. We know that in practice, what these targets are doing is helping employers like the RAF to mitigate human bias, to challenge themselves as employers to step out of the comfort zone of just hiring the same type of people and really, losing performance because of homogeneity, because of groupthink, because of organizational blindness. We all agree, I'm sure, on this call that equality of access is key, and that people from every aspect of society, regardless of their background or their identity, should all be given a fair opportunity to reach their potential and contribute to the economy. And that's exactly what these measures, these types of solutions, are impactful.
Well, yeah, equality of opportunity is a fantastic thing, and should be applauded and should be reached for. But it doesn't include, pausing the hiring of white men, for example. Like excluding a demographic group is the opposite of equality of opportunity. And I'm concerned about the push for equity, where 50% of every job is done by women, and every job sector has to exactly match the demographic breakdown, because there are some jobs that men prefer to do, like working in the sewers, working as a fisherman, working on an oil rig. These are things that men seem to prefer to do, and women prefer not to do. And there are some jobs that women prefer to do, working in a nursery, for example. I mean, Sam, going back to you, does the sort of push for equity concern you?
I don't think you would expect to see equality of outcome across all demographic and social groups in society in the representation in various fields. So long as there are even slight differences in what people prefer to do or in their sort of ability to attain it, if you go by social backgrounds, then you will find that you'll end up with differences in the proportions represented in different spheres. When Sophie was talking about the number of white working class kids going to university, it shouldn't be that surprising to have a relatively low proportion, because we are talking about people who are going to have an enormously challenging time in education. So if you take this group, this is my demographic group, so I feel some sort of ability to speak to it. If you look at my sort of peers at school, they were going to have tremendous difficulty getting into a university education in some cases, and the answer was not to, once they get to university application stage, sort of lower the bar to let them in, or to sort of push them through that way, because they probably weren't going to be in a position to make use of it. You should have given them a quality opportunity, which what they have, but you need to make these sort of targeted interventions early on so they actually have the ability to do these things. And in the case of people preferring to do different things, I think it's not necessarily something you overly want to correct. And if it tends to be the case that the more gender equal a country is, the greater the differences in the sort of roles men and women tend to take within the economy, which I find quite an interesting sort of outcome.
Yeah,
I mean,
that is
just
interesting.
what Sam references there with reference to social mobility. As part of the research the government commissioned diversity task force that Extend sits on, we found that there is an undeniable relationship between someone coming from a lower socioeconomic background and their career progression. Employees essentially from lower socioeconomic backgrounds do take longer to progress through the grades with absolutely zero link to their job performance. And that's exactly why we do need interventions, market corrections, like workforce solution target setting to help reduce these barriers to social mobility. And that's stated fact.
Yeah, and I'd like to bring my panel in as well. I mean, Chris, you were saying when you have if you had surgery, you know, God forbid you should ever need it, but if you had surgery, you'd want the best surgeon, not a surgeon who'd been picked to fit a demographic.
100%. And I've had quite a bit of surgery in the last few years, and I've had the best doctors. They've not been white working class, they've not been white middle class. One guy was from Israel, another guy was an Asian chap. I didn't care. I just want get me sorted. So you do want the best people, and I think that is not going to look. You do need to allow more people from different backgrounds into industry, and over time allow them to get to the top. But it's not all at once. And when we talk about the RAF, I wonder what jobs they're allowing them into. They might not be going for the officer role and to be Top Gun. They might be going to RAF regiment and garden installations. I don't know. I'm just asking the question.
Yeah.
So as Chris is aptly pointing out, I mean, the methodology of the way that statistics are worked with and the way that we come up with a method that's somehow supposed to provide more equality for all. I mean, first of all, what astounded me from what the gentleman was saying earlier was the idea that meritocracy as a starting ground is somehow a moot point. The entire premise of meritocracy, when you think about it, is it was supposed to be the firstborn child of democracy in the first place. The whole reason why we don't have lords and overrulers subjugating us and telling us what to do, meritocracy is where all of this stuff starts. And unlike Sophie, and I'm grateful to Chris for assuming I'm maybe a bit younger than I am, but I'm 52. Through the course of my life, I saw the racism when I was growing up as a kid in the 70s with the Windrush generation, and suddenly you had, bloke rallying against the fact that someone's moved in from next door who's exotic and he doesn't quite understand. And then societally, I mean, if you're not a nasty society, which we never were, certainly not at this point in history. The wives start to get together, and while the husbands are arguing, the wives make friends, and then the kids go to school together. And societally, we take care of a lot of this. And that system, that process, that's the one that's genuine, that's the one that's real. The more we tinker with it, in the arrogant assumption that we're being clever, especially the statisticians, I can't say the word this time of night, looking at which stats can be, as was pointed out earlier, really spuriously messed around with, to satisfy one agenda over another, when there should be no agenda. If we want to have a colourblind society, if we want to have a society where we don't take each other's gender and race and religion and everything else into account, sexuality, you leave us be to get on. And to realise that we're colourblind. If we want to get more ethnic minorities and more women into the RAF, then we've got to find ways of encouraging people to want to apply and encouraging people that those jobs are available to them and reminding them that there is a colour-blind, gender-blind system at the time.
When I joined the army, to be a guardsman, you had to be white.
Right.
They didn't have black people in the guards because of uniformity. Exactly the same in high orchestra. But because somebody decided, actually, this doesn't make sense, you've got black guardsmen now.
Absolutely. But my argument is that didn't necessarily come from positive discrimination. That came from a societal understanding that it was wrong, effectively, to be racist.
It was about bringing barriers down, rather than...
Our kids were all playing together in school, and they were forming friendships, and people were realising the guy next door is no different to me. That natural process, the more we tinker with that, by believing that somehow positive discrimination is just one theory over another theory.
Yeah.
But if we subscribe to these kind of theories rather than paying attention to what we societally do, Lord of the Flies, how things naturally get preordained, when we understand that a sense of morality should prevail all of it, should fuel all of it, it happens by itself. I think we're tinkering with things to a degree that's creating more racism, it's creating more division. We're seeing each other in boxes. I don't define myself as a white man. I'm sure you don't define yourself as a black man. You're a man. You know, we've had our own individual lived experiences and we value each other for our individuality.
Yeah.
We've got essentially a new generation of activism that somehow believes that for the sake of a bit of self-importance and having a bit of the limelight, that all of this can be tinkered with and asked around with to a point whereby you're actually starting to unravel all the good stuff that's been happening generationally, societally already.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, and thanks to Sam Ashworth-Hayes and Julian Richard for their contribution to that discussion. And thanks to my panel, of course, especially Genghis, who I think made the most sense. Anyway, lots more still to come. We'll discuss if it's time to take the law into your own hands, plus the papers at 10:30. Don't go anywhere. I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan Tonight with me, Leo Kears, today. We've got some more emails in from viewers around the green agenda and the diversity issue. So Yvonne says there are currently 26 erupting volcanoes today, so that's going to be contributing to climate change. Bet says all net zero thinkers and Extinction Rebellion should be glued to a non-stop fast train from London to Glasgow. That should give them something to think about. I don't know why you dump them on Glasgow. What have we ever done to you? Moving on to diversity, we've got somebody who served 17 years as air crew, a navigator, 69 to 86, flew 3,500 hours, not all in one go, I assume. Never met a pilot or navigator of colour, and I met thousands. The job was more important than quotas. I'm not sure what Bob in Spain is saying there, what point he's making. But Sarah says it has to be the best qualified regardless of colour or gender. The same must apply to all recruits. John says if you're a white working class man in this country, you might as well emigrate, because unless you're a woman or from an ethnic group or LGBT, you've got no chance of getting the job. So that is, John has been turned down from Pizza Hut. Anyway, we're back here with with my... we're going to be talking about police in America who seem to allow a suspected paedophile to walk free after he was or she was caught trying to meet an underage girl. He or she, they're transgender, so we're not exactly sure, was caught in a sting operation by a vigilante group, the Predator Poachers, before police got involved. But despite them being handed evidence that he had intentions to molest the decoy child, who was only 9, the police let him walk free. So if authorities struggle to catch this type of suspected criminal, and with the internet increasingly hard to police, should people be allowed to take child protection into their own hands in this way? And back to the panel. Are we showing the clip? All right, so I'm going to ask the panel. I mean, we haven't seen the clip yet, but do you? Yeah. I mean, do you think it's time?
I'm all for it. We need to find more ways to let paedophiles off. I mean, how crazy is society getting? Come on. And everything that comes over from the States, it comes over. I mean, we're absorbing American culture.
Oh yeah.
Who it is?
In fact, we've got the clip now. So there's no sound, so we could pretend to be their voices. So this is a paedophile sting. We've seen these. They become a trope. They do them in the UK. I think the UK ones are better than the American ones. The UK ones,
ours are really good.
They don't even need the police. Like the guy gets destroyed, without any police intervention. But the police do also turn up. But in this case, the police allowed the suspected paedophile who'd been talking with somebody posing as a child online, who was posing as a 9-year-old. They allowed the paedophile or suspected paedophile to walk away. So, I mean, what do you think of this?
That's crazy. And it's absolutely crazy. So they've got him banged to rights. He's been communicating with somebody that's underage. He even decides that he wants to have relationships with a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old as well. It's just like, I mean, I don't know what else you've got to do to get arrested. I mean, it's absurd.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the police were actually worried about.
Well, apparently, the police were upset that the suspected paedophile had been misgendered. So, they saw that almost as a worse crime than...
Misgendering is already becoming a criminal issue in Germany. I gather it is in Norway as well.
Right.
We're living in a global civilization. Social media brings us all together. We're all absorbing each other's traditions.
Yeah.
Some of us are getting a little bit freaky, a little bit too quickly, and it spreads. It's almost like it's cult thinking that's based on what? I mean, we're losing some pretty basic elements of common sense, social values, on the back of a new form of activism that makes people feel good about themselves. And that's the main reason why it exists.
And Sophie, you seem like the sort of person who'd confront a paedophile outside an Aldi.
What's that to each other? I mean, but yeah, I would actually, to be fair.
Yeah. And do you think there's a place for this kind of... I mean, it's not quite vigilantism because they hand over the suspect to the police. They just alert the police.
Well, you said previously, if the police can't catch them, well, they could have done. They just chose not to. And that's a culture we've seen with our police, and we've seen it here in the UK with the rise of just insane lawlessness that we've recently experienced. That young girl getting shot in Liverpool, that old man being stabbed to death in London, the looting of all of the shops. Meanwhile, our police are doing the Macarena. The whole thing has become a joke, and people are walking down the streets, and it's often people like me, young girls, who have absolutely no means of self-defence because our country has just outlawed it. I mean, pepper spray. If you carry pepper spray, Leo, it's the same charge of a firearms charge, and you can go to prison for 10 years. And there was a young Danish girl who was raped and then was fined because she was carrying pepper spray that got her attacker off of her. So this entire culture has become, hate speech is the #1 crime. If you've been robbed, don't bother ringing the police that you've been robbed. Just tell them somebody misgendered you. They'll be round your gaff in about 5 minutes. Because we've just lost our sense of priorities. People are being stabbed to death, and yet we've got police that are too worried about diversity targets and encouraging each other and grinding on each other at Pride and doing the Macarena. And people aren't safe anymore. I mean, the country cannot expect people to walk down the street and get attacked and do nothing about it. Yeah. That is morally reprehensible that people are now having to go out in public and be unsafe because it is deemed wrong that people are allowed to have methods that can defend themselves. I mean, if somebody attacked me, I'm 5'5", I'm a lot shorter than you, I ain't got a chance.
Yeah, and quickly, before we go, who's got the best paedophile hunters? The UK or America?
Ours, because ours is
so
it's always a bloke called, you know, oh, my name's Colin, I'm a chartered accountant. I'm wanting to communicate with a young child who I fancy. There's a bit more, I don't know, there's a bit more humour in mundane, everyday Britishness.
Right, yeah.
In a sense, you know.
So the UK leading the world in paedophile hunters. It's good to see there's still something we're good at. There's plenty more to come. We're going to meet the human canvas and explore if tattoos have lost their taboo. Plus tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello and welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight with me, Leo Kearse, this afternoon, keeping his seat warm until he gets back from rehab. We still have plenty to get through. We'll have the papers at 10:30, and in a few moments, I'm meeting the woman whose tattoos are taking social media by storm. Plus, what should you do with a lottery win and another great game show? But first, the headlines with Simon Pusey.
Hello, I'm Simon Pusey in the GB newsroom. Police investigating the murder of Olivia Pratt-Corbell have warned that anyone withholding information is protecting killers. The 9-year-old was shot by a gunman on Monday when he chased his intended target into her home in Liverpool. 2 men who were arrested on suspicion of murder have been released on bail, with one of them being recalled to prison for breaching the terms of his licence. Merseyside police are urging anyone with information to come forward, saying silence is not an option.
We've got a 9-year-old girl who won't celebrate her 18th birthday. She won't celebrate her wedding. She won't have children of her own. If you've got information and you're withholding it, you're protecting the killers. We need your information.
Meanwhile, Ms Truss has vowed to bolster Britain's defences if she becomes Prime Minister, saying the era of complacency is over. She wants to push ahead with renewing Trident and strengthen support for intelligence services as part of her plan to protect the UK. Retired British Army officer Major General Tim Cross told GB News, with Russia a continued threat, Britain needs to reconsider its defence and foreign policies.
Over these last 20 years, we have become complacent. We never really put sufficient resources in terms of military into Iraq or Afghanistan, and we weren't prepared to stay there for the length of time that we had been involved in, for example, the Cold War. So I think we have been complacent, and what's happening in Russia, Ukraine, and indeed elsewhere, I mean, autocracies, dictatorships, China, and so on, has made people realise that we do need to think again about how we're going to engage in not just defence policy, but foreign policy and other aspects of our external relationships as well.
West Yorkshire police say they have launched an investigation after a suspected drug-related death of a 16-year-old boy at the Leeds Festival. The teenager was taken to the medical tent after falling ill and was then taken to hospital before being pronounced dead. While the exact cause of his death is yet to be established, one line of inquiry is that he had taken ecstasy. More than 25,000 migrants have now crossed the Channel so far this year. That's after 915 people were intercepted yesterday, the Ministry of Defence saying they were on board 19 small boats. Monday saw the highest daily total on record, with 1,295 people making the treacherous journey across from France. And NASA's new space program is on course to launch its first mission to the moon. Conditions are expected to be favourable tomorrow, with the unmanned Artemis 1 due to lift off just after 1:30 UK time. If all goes well, astronauts will be back on the moon for the first time in over 50 years. The ultimate goal is to create a base camp. NASA Test Director Jeff Spaulding says so far everything is going to plan.
Bottom line is we look really good. No issues, no concerns or constraints from the lightning events at this point. We've done the battery charging on both Orion and the core stage. Those are complete. So that's all going really well and all as planned and on schedule.
TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight with Leah.
Thank you for that, Simon. Hello and welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. I, Leo Kearse, am still your guest host for tonight. We have plenty more still coming your way. As always, we have top-class paper reviews bang on at 10:30. That's certainly one not to miss. We'll still be discussing how often you're actually meant to shower, and it's splitting opinions. And if you should share a lottery ticket. I know there's a woman this week who won the lottery and just ran off, left her fella. As always, we want to hear from you, so keep your emails and tweets coming in, and we'll read them out as we go. And as Mark always said, we don't do boring. That's the name of the game. And our next guest is the opposite of boring, that's for sure. So Victoria Rose travels the world, and instead of getting souvenirs, she gets a tattoo in every country she visits. She got her first at 20, and she hasn't looked back. She's now got 60, despite a little bit of judgment from her conservative family. What started out as a little collection has now turned into a career, and she has over 1 million TikTok followers and calls herself a cyberpunk nomad. She's not going to stop the tats, even though she's running out of room on her body. So let's meet her. Hello, Victoria.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
I can see some of your tattoos. You get like a different... Every time you go to a country, you get a new tattoo.
Yeah.
Have you been to Scotland?
No, I want to go to Scotland.
Right, you want to go to Scotland and get a tattoo. Just make sure they use a fresh needle in Scotland. But yeah, so some of your tattoos, you've got a leopard print on your shoulder. Mm-hmm. Is that a zebra print on the other
Yeah, I really
shoulder?
love animals.
Right.
A lot, yeah.
And were they in Africa? Were they actually in...
I wish. I haven't been to Africa yet. I'd really like to get some tattoos in Africa. So there's a lot of places I still need to go.
Whereabouts? Where did you get your first tattoo?
America. A lot of them are in America. But
right.
Recently, the last few years, I've been traveling the world. I'm like, I guess I'll just get a tattoo. And then it just became a thing.
Right, yeah. And what's your favourite place that you've visited so far?
I don't have favorites. My favorite tattoo place was Seoul. That was my most recent place.
In Korea?
Yeah, because they do really good tattoo work, even though it's like technically a little illegal, but they do really, really good work there.
Right, yeah. And your favourite place to visit regardless of tattoos?
England. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I do want to move here.
Why
but
is that funny?
I mean, it's not. I do want to move here, but
you want to move to England? You've been to South Korea, you've been to America, and you'd be like, no, I want more rain.
It's very central here. Like you can get anywhere from London, anyways.
So the good thing about the UK is that you can get out of the UK.
Exactly.
Is that what you're saying?
It's also good, like, to get from New York to here as well, but it's gotten really expensive here. So
yeah, it has because of the cost of living crisis. And so are you from New York?
I am from a farm in Pennsylvania.
All right. Are you Amish?
I could have been. I grew up around a lot of Amish.
No way!
That would be a good story if I was, but no. I know a lot about the Amish, but I'm not Amish.
You're not Amish,
No.
but you grew up around
I know
Amish.
about farm things.
And well, that could, if you ever moved to Scotland, that could do you in good stead. You get a job very easily driving a plough. But I mean, so your family back home in Pennsylvania are quite conservative. Do you feel any judgment when you?
No, I mean, my mom doesn't really like tattoos. I don't know if my dad cares or not, but my family, we're all kind of weird, so it's fine. No one really judged me, I don't think. But older people, I guess, maybe. I don't know. I don't ask. I don't ask, so.
And you call yourself a cyberpunk nomad. What does that mean? Because I always thought a nomad was a female gnome, and I thought you were going to come in with like a fishing rod.
Oh,
and
you're
little
wrong.
Hat.
Yeah, maybe it's a Scottish thing. No, like nomad is just someone, like, well, for me, I don't really have a home.
Right.
So I just travel around all the time. And cyberpunk, because I just love cyberpunk, like futuristic robots, high-tech, low-life type of thing. I like to go to each country and find a little cyberpunk place, because every city has cyberpunk. It's the future, kind of.
So there's a cyberpunk community in every...
It's very small. It's not in like every city, but I try to find it in most cities.
And what is cyberpunk? So it's futuristic,
like
robot...
Black Mirror.
Like what?
Black Mirror.
Oh, right, yeah. Like
Blade Runner, Ghost in the Shell, stuff like that. That's all like futuristic cyberpunk. It's like really high tech, but it's almost like dystopian as well.
Right.
But it could be a potential reality, and maybe it will be soon.
And so what do you do when you're sort of with cyberpunk?
Well, I do a lot of creative stuff. So I do a lot of editing and stuff and filming, camera stuff, photo shoots, stuff like that. That's like the aesthetic is all cyberpunk based.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing.
And how did your social media? You've got 1 million TikTok followers, which is loads. How did that start taking off?
I've done social media for a really long time. I don't know. It's gradually grown up to this. I don't know when there wasn't a point where it was just like, but yeah, I guess when I've been like the traveling and getting better at editing, it got bigger.
Right. Yeah. And have you? Do you make a living off your social media followers?
Yeah, it's a very small living. Definitely not enough to afford London, but you wing it and then see if it works or not.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, that's my job.
So I've got like under 30,000 on Twitter. Can I quit my job yet? And
if you want to,
go full-time Twitter person. Do I have to get?
I don't know about Twitter. I don't know anything about Twitter.
Right. It's sort of like a sort of angry pub brawl.
Yeah, I've never really gotten into it. Do you have TikTok?
I do have TikTok, but I only put about 6 videos up. One of them got like 500,000 views or something.
Oh, well done.
But I don't feel. I feel like I'm too old for TikTok. I feel
No. TikTok's for everyone.
Is it?
There's like so many different people on TikTok. Like you could even do like a little behind the scenes of whatever you do, and people like that.
Right.
Like there's lawyers, doctors, news anchors, I'm sure.
Right. Doctors showing you sort of behind the scenes of
I don't know if they
open heart surgery.
Yeah, basically some of them like show a lot of stuff. So
this is what we do with the hearts.
There's like a niche on TikTok for everything.
Yeah. It's
gotten so big.
And do you have any TikTok accounts that you follow? Do you enjoy sort of looking at it as well as?
I follow like my friends, stuff that inspires me, I guess. I don't follow a ton of people just because it gets overwhelming, but yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. And editing. So you do editing of other people's videos?
No, just my own.
Just your own?
There's a lot of work. I do like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube as well.
Right.
Like YouTube's my main source of income. But yeah, it's a lot of editing.
Right, yeah. And these videos are about your travels and your tattoos.
Traveling and tattoos and stuff like
and what are your favorite couple of tattoos? I mean, I can see there's some sort of
I don't want to throw my leg up on the counter or anything, but...
yeah, you can throw your leg up on the counter.
Okay. Can you see that?
We're insured.
Yeah,
what the lizard? One. Oh, the dragon!
That's
oh my God!
Yeah, it's my most recent one.
Yeah, keep it up. So that dragon, you can tilt it around. So that looks. Is that Chinese? What does it mean?
It's Korean.
It's Korean.
My tattoos don't really have meaning, but it was very painful.
It was very painful.
Yeah,
it's like it's right on the shin.
Yeah, but it's also for tattoos, certain colors are more painful than others.
Right.
Oh God, that one killed me.
Right.
That's my favorite right now because it's my newest one.
You can put it down now if you like. It's refreshing to see somebody admit that their tattoos have no meaning. Because normally... I don't take it... Like the day before I think of the idea, I'm like, okay, that sounds good. And then the next day I get it.
Right. It's just like life's not that serious.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great to hear, because so many times, my friends come back from Thailand or whatever, and they've got like a symbol on their leg, and they're like, oh, this is so meaningful, mate. There was a full moon, and and it means peace or something. And for a fact that it means chicken soup, and some Thai guy is just making fun of them.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it's just decoration.
Yeah.
I just like to be creative and express, but I don't take it too seriously, especially after you get a lot. People with minimal tattoos, they want to have a lot of meaning for the little ones that they have. So.
And do you think tattoos are still quite taboo? Because I know when I was growing up, tattoos were the only people who had them were like guys in prison who'd punch your face in, and Motley Crue. And there wasn't the sort of, you'd never get served a coffee by somebody with a tattoo. And now tattoos are everywhere. Do you think there is still a sort of tattoo, a bit of a taboo, I mean?
I mean, in Western culture, not as much. But yes, of course, there still is. When I travel, like Korea, Japan, places like that, it's still very taboo. And a lot of the people, like for Japan, for example, it's associated with the Yakuza. I'm not allowed to go into the gyms or the bathhouses unless I have my tattoos all covered up, which is very difficult to do.
How do you do that?
Yeah, I went to the gym and I had to wear a turtleneck, and then the lady, she's like, no. So she covered up.
Because they're on your hands.
Yeah,
as well.
She taped
your fingers up.
Yeah, so it's still a little extreme in Japan.
Swaddled like an Egyptian mummy.
Yeah, and I'm trying to work out. It was frustrating. I could find one gym that allowed tattooed people, but.
Yeah. So yeah, a little lesson there. If you're going to Japan and you want to work out in a gym, don't have lots of tattoos. So I'm going to bring in the panel now, because we've got people on the panel. I know Todd Sharpville is a blues musician, so you must know plenty of people with tattoos. Todd? Have you got any tattoos?
All my tattoos are in the hardest to spot places. Well,
I'm sure
you have to search far and wide to find my tattoos. I'm really liberal about all this kind of stuff. I mean, they're tattoos. I find tattoos in many regards very sexy, but I also know that my mum and my mum's generation consider these things from a different perspective, because they grew up at a time when there was so much more formality to our social norms. And I do worry about how we represent these things publicly and how we change the narrative without bearing in mind that there's plenty of facets of society who are of a different age and a different era, and we still have to kind of respect their existence on the planet and not make them feel like they're disenfranchised from everything that's socially going on around them. So we have to be delicate about these things,
Yeah, and apparently a study suggests that approximately 47% of millennials have got tattoos on their bodies. Sophie, you're a young person. It's not meant to sound like an insult. Do you have any tattoos? Do a lot of your friends have tattoos?
I personally don't. A lot of my friends do. My twin sister does. I don't really like the look of being tattooed head to toe and having bright green hair or bright blue hair. Usually I can see those people and just know that they're going to be the most wokest human beings on the planet. So I tend to ignore them because they usually have terrible opinions, and that's typically how I know if they're covered in head to toe with tattoos and have bright blue hair. I just don't like the way it looks. I don't think it looks professional. But also, getting tattoos when you're younger, especially sort of around our age, 18 plus, our bodies develop, our bodies change, especially for women. It's not necessarily as bad, I think, for men, but especially for women, you grow in different places, you wrinkle and things like that. And I think that over time, those tattoos then become not as attractive when your body changes, and that's something that
so
is hard to undo.
You start off with like a love heart on your breast,
and then it looks like a dodgy circle.
By the time you're in your 60s, it's a plum tomato. I see what you mean. But there's a lot of successful people like David Beckham who've got tattoos. Chris, if you were going to have a tattoo, what tattoo would you get, and where would you stick it?
Yeah, I ain't going there, mate. I definitely would never have a tattoo. But if I was going to have a tattoo, I'd probably have one on my little earlobe and pretend it was a little earring, and that was back in the 60s. Flower power, man.
What about Olympic rings to
why don't you Everyone does.
Well, actually, quite a lot of Olympians have the rings, don't they?
But where do they put them?
Oh, you could put them on your.
Oh, I was assuming that. Well, I got. I've won 4 gold medals, so I get.
Yeah, why get a tattoo? Just walk around with your gold medal.
Well, as it happens, no, I won't get it up.
Have you got it?
Of course I got it. Of course I got it. Yeah. So I would have if I would have my tattoo. This is where I'd have my tattoo. Quite prompt. I'd have my tattoo prompt right on my head like that and say, "Yo, I'm the man."
That's well cool.
But I wouldn't have one tattoo, so don't bother.
And do you, I mean, going back to our guest, do you feel judged for having tattoos?
No, so I wouldn't. No, so I saw the lovely lady in the green room, said hello to her, live and let live, crack on, be who you want to be. If it's a way of expressing your innermost being, crack on. Nothing to do with me.
So Sophie would judge people. She'd think they're probably woke. Chris wouldn't judge people. Todd, would you judge people if they had tattoos?
Well, no, but I mean, I don't believe we're supposed to judge anyone full stop. I mean, this is why I'm always railing against the premise of any premise that puts us all into little boxes where we're supposed to view each other on a very superficial basis. I'll talk to you down a pub, have a pint or two, and then decide whether you're an arsehole or not.
Well, I mean, surely that's it. I mean, there's certain job roles, there's certain situations where tattoos are cool. I've got no problem at all. The barman's got a tattoo. Barman's got a tattoo, but I mean, surely even like going back to my guest Victoria Rose, if you're obviously a supporter of tattoos, but if you were getting on a plane, this massive Airbus A380, biggest passenger jet in history, and the pilot, you catch a peek of the pilot, and he's got no regrets tattooed on his neck, and he's got love and hate on his knuckles. I mean, would you be a bit trepidatious getting on that plane, Victoria?
Me? No, just because I don't look at who's flying the plane. Like, if they have the credentials, like, fly the plane.
You're just fine. You don't worry.
I just don't care.
You don't worry what they did when they were drunk, when they were 17. It's
I
just
mean,
that they can fly
everybody
that
does
plane.
things. Like, I'm sure everybody here has, like, yeah, maybe a tattoo. You have to think a little bit more about it, especially when you're younger. But I always just say we're gonna die and our skin's gonna rot off, and we're the same thing. Same thing. That's what I say, though.
But what about those, the guys with the ears, where they put something in the ear and then it turns into a massive big loop that you can put like a pencil through and
Oh
then
yeah,
put
like
a finger
when you
through.
have gauged ears.
What's it
I've
called?
done that. Like, it's when you gauge your ears.
Gauge?
Or, stretch your ears.
I mean, that's. Do you think that's nice, or do you think
You can get that. You can get that fixed.
You can get it
if you
fixed?
want to later. Yeah, you can get it sewn up if you change your mind or it closes up. I used to have those.
Did you?
Yeah.
And they've gone now.
I mean, yeah, basically, pretty much.
Crazy.
I mean, it's just part of my life story.
And what's your next tattoo going to be? I assume you're going to Scotland next to get one. You're going
I
to
am
get
going
a
to
haggis.
Scotland this time around. I don't know what I'm going to get in Scotland. I'm working on this circuit tattoo here. This is my London one. And my friend's going to continue it up my arm because I love cyborgs. I want to look like a robot.
Right. It looks like you're trying to get the blueprint for some sort of high-tech chip out of the country.
It means.
Past security. So that's obviously very cyberpunk because it's an electrical circuit.
Yeah.
Is it based on anything?
Like a labyrinth. I don't know. Not really.
Right.
Like I said, it doesn't.
So if you printed it out on silicon, it wouldn't run an
I don't know. Maybe.
Right. Chris, like you said, you definitely won't get a tattoo. Apart from
Never in a month.
Maybe one on your forehead.
Never in a month of Sundays. No, it's just not my gig at
Chris,
all.
we've got a tattoo artist. We've got a little surprise for you. We've got a tattoo artist in the studio tonight. Who's going to do the Olympic rings?
Tattooed on him.
Pardon, what you say? Sorry, Leah.
We've got the equipment. I'm gonna do it. Don't worry. I've watched some YouTube videos. I'm sure I know what I'm doing.
You know, I've got a funny feeling Sophie's up for that. Millennial generation. She's hanging tough. No worries. I'll hold her down for you.
If you can make that sound a bit less sinister, Chris, that'd be fantastic.
I'll get a tattoo saying I love Greta Thunberg.
Okay.
I've got no room on my privates for any more tattoos. They're full.
That's not because they're small.
But what about?
Anyway, we've got to move on.
Genghis.
There's
What about Genghis?
Thank you so much. Thank you so
asked
much
Genghis.
to my guest, Victoria Rose, and we've got the papers coming soon. And next, we're going to discuss what you would do if you won the lottery.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan Tonight. I'm Leo Kearse Tonight. I'm joined, as ever, by my panel, Sophie Corcoran, the 20-year-old, what was it? Blue Peter Badge winner. We've got Chris Akabusi, who nearly reached the heady heights of that by winning actual Olympic medals. And Todd Sharpville, world-renowned blues musician.
Who once applied to be on Jim Will Fix It.
Who once applied to be on Jim Will Fix It. And some would say you're lucky. Yeah. He was an unattractive child. And we've got Genghis. Genghis as well, the miracle dog sitting there having a lovely time. That is the happiest looking dog I've ever seen in my life.
He's snuggled up to a national hero.
Yeah, he knows talent when he sees it.
There you go.
That dog should be working for a big talent agency. Now, going to a couple of your emails. We have on diversity, John says, "My name is John. Will you read out my email or will you discriminate against me?" Lol. Alan has asked, can you ask Chris if he faced any discrimination while serving in the British Army? I mean, this was, what, 40 years ago?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you couldn't be a young black man growing up and not get discrimination.
Yeah.
Of course, but you just cracked on, you get on with it.
Yeah. I know, have you seen things change?
Yeah, things have changed drastically. I mean, obviously, I'm not in the army now.
Yeah.
But the world's changed drastically.
Yeah.
It's like now... in the block, for example, men and women share the same block.
Right.
So, I mean, I know the chapter's talking about ethnic discrimination, but there was also discrimination with ladies. But now men and women share the same block. The army is not the same place today as it was in my yesteryears.
Right. Interesting. And moving on tattoos, Sharon says, often tattoos are part of a person's history, a diary of artwork. Someone else says, someone else called Jay says, I think tattoos are horrible, but especially on women. Sorry. Thank you for the apology there, Jay. Amanda says, it really depends on how big, where it is, how visible it will be, and what the job is. I think she's talking about tattoos, but I'm not totally sure. Greg says, tattoos, body art, piercings, these differentiate the cultured from the stupid. And makes it a lot easier to know who to avoid. I don't know if he means avoid the people with tattoos or who don't have tattoos. I'm not totally sure. Tom says, I have found that tattoos accentuate hotness status. If you're hot, tattoos make you hotter. If you're ugly, tattoos make you look even more pathetic. Well, steady on, Tom, not just ugly, not pathetic. Anyone who wants a tattoo needs undertaking hotness test to be allowed to have one. Okay, so Tom is willing to stand at the entrance to tattoo parlours and make sure people are hot enough to get one. And the third one down, Gil says, I admit to hiding mine at work, and from certain friends, one showed horror last week on seeing one of them that said it made sense with the motorbike and everything. Yeah, this is, I mean, tattoos used to be, sailors, bikers, people like that. Now it's some, floppy-haired guy making your coffee. Like, it's, the tattoos don't...
Well, what was supposed to be a statement of individuality is no longer individual because it's a trend.
Yeah.
And that's it. The moment something becomes a trend, is it really worth following the trend?
Yeah.
That's up to every member of society to decide. But whether we judge people for following trends or not, I don't know. Yeah. There's more important shit we should be judging each other over, possibly.
Yeah. I think a great business to have now, given that, these things are sort of social contagion and a trend, a great business to have now would be tattoo removal. Because just as everybody got a tattoo, and we saw half of millennials have got a tattoo, once it catches on that tattoos aren't cool, once the, mullets went out of fashion, double denim went out of fashion.
Durham, everyone has a mullet.
Everyone's got a mullet.
Mullets are back in.
All the lads, blazers and mullets.
But this is the thing, they're back in. But in a couple of years' time, they're going to be out again. Mullets are going to be. This is what I'm saying. Fashion is cyclical. So when the cycle changes, you can just change your haircut if you got a mullet. If you got a tattoo, you can't be grafting your,
See, I think I don't like tattoos because everybody where I'm from in Farratt, they all have it either like on their knuckles or like face tattoos. Like the amount of friends I've had to try and persuade to not get a tattoo on your face is unbelievable. So that's why I don't like tattoos. It's not the pretty love hearts that a lot of people in my area get, and it's like head to toe, face covered, and I just think it's ugly.
But yeah, it used to be so discreet when people had tattoos. They were covered under parts of your clothing, but now it's,
I wouldn't want a person who is covered in head to toe with tattoos teaching my kid.
Right.
To be quite honest with you.
What if they had the table of elements tattooed in their body, or the alphabet? Then it'd be useful
well,
if they're
I
teaching
should
your kids.
absolutely hope that.
Depends what part of the body they're getting out to show off the alphabet to your kids.
We've had a lot of people emailing and asking about what happened to Genghis's eye. Is it?
Oh, but the most frustrating question, because he suffered an accident when he was 2, and he's 11 now. But unlike most things in our lives, when something awful happens and you have to get over it emotionally, and then you get to put it to bed to a certain degree. Every single day of my life since that accident, I've had to relive the accident by explaining what happened to Genghis's eye.
Yeah.
I mean, this is probably what's going to get me into heaven one day.
Yeah.
He had an accident. He bit down on a sewing needle my daughter left on the floor.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. It's traumatic. 8-hour surgery and,
Dogs are always eating stuff you shouldn't really eat. Like my mate's dog ate a cassette tape. We held it up. We could hear the Smiths coming out of its belly. No, but then we only knew that it had eaten this cassette tape when it started pooping the cassette tape out, and you couldn't just pull it out. I had to go to the vet. Anyway, it is time for the papers, the front pages of tomorrow's papers. So we're going to start with the Times. We've got half of Tory voters want energy to be nationalised, and households are preparing to limit heat, a poll has found, because it looks like energy rationing is going to come in because we stopped drilling and we're dependent on Russian oil and gas. They're also saying for every inch you can pinch, heart failure risk rises by 10%. So if you lose weight off your waistline, you reduce your risk of heart failure. All I've noticed, there's a lot of things in the media coming up. There's suddenly everything is causing myocarditis and heart failure. It makes me slightly suspicious.
The NHS website the other day.
They took what off?
The myocarditis page off of the NHS website.
They took it off? Where?
Yeah.
And did they replace it with something else?
Yeah, they sort of, I think it was cardiomyopathy, they sort of drawn them all together, but I do think it's rather irresponsible taking a page of a health condition. If somebody searches it because they're concerned, it should be there because somebody might not think to go and look in another section. So I actually think that's really irresponsible, and questions should be asked because, people do have concerns and it is a very serious condition. And, if someone wants to Google it, as we all Google things, if we've got a headache, sometimes
Well, I always Google stuff, and then I convince myself I've got about 17 different health conditions.
Yeah, it's like headache, and it's like you've got like a brain tumour.
Far too much information.
It's a popular trend for the NHS to take things off its website. I mean, it's taken the word woman off its website and replaced it with chest feeder and vagina bearer or whatever the word of the day happens to be.
Surely it just makes it simpler, because everybody knows what an ovary haver is. Nobody knows what a woman is. And also,
it's all very Handmaid's Tale, isn't it?
Truss is going to declare China an official threat for the first time. So that's interesting there. Moving on to the I, we've got Truss again saying Truss under pressure to offer energy help for all. I mean, the issue that I've got with the caps and the sort of subsidies they're giving for energy is that, you know, there's not enough energy. So we need to reduce energy consumption because we're not getting enough energy out of the ground. Russia's not giving us enough gas. So if we subsidise it, people won't reduce the use. So then the price will rise even more. So the subsidies are going to be ineffective, and they're just going to cost the taxpayer and cost the energy user even more than they would have originally.
Well, but look, in all seriousness, I mean, it's a big if, but if £3,000, £5,000 bills are coming down the road, we are most definitely going to have a riot.
Yeah.
We are definitely going to have a tear-up. So if you want to destroy the cohesiveness of society, if you want people marching on the streets, if you want bricks through the window, because at the moment, I think the general public, I'd include myself, don't really believe it. I don't really believe that you're going to expect somebody on 20, 30 grand a year to spend £5 on his or her energy.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are still in disbelief that it's actually real as well. People are seeing these numbers come out on TV and haven't yet looked at their banks. And as soon as that does happen and people realise in the dire situation we're in, I think, you know, they're going to start to realise for the first time that net zero has a massive cost. And it is
it's not just net zero, it's also lockdown.
Yes, lockdown as well, but obviously the biggest problem in people's lives is their energy bills. And you were saying, well, we need to ration energy because we don't have enough. Well, yes, because renewable energy, windmills are only supplying 3% of our energy.
And they work when the wind blows. When the wind doesn't blow, you're in trouble.
The reason why we're more susceptible than any other European country, and people are going to say it's because it's Brexit, it's actually not. It's because proportionately, in comparison to all of the other European countries, in terms of our energy supply, the largest amount that we use comes from gas, and that is what is so volatile at the moment to the prices. So we are so vulnerable to it because we've refused to use our shale gas, and we've gone down the renewables route, and we've had to buy gas, and we haven't done gas reserves, which gas companies should have done. So we have no supply of gas reserves, so we're having to buy it at the market price, and that market price is what is increasing, which is why I think, you know, but in terms of the listing, £400 of what makes up our gas prices are through VAT and the green levies. Well, they're giving us all, if I'm right, a £400 like gas payment to every single household. Why are they giving us that money when they can just cut the tax? Why are they giving people handouts when they can just cut our taxes? Because we wouldn't need your handouts if you stopped taking so much money of us in the first place. And it's the middle-class people in this country that are struggling the most, because those who are on benefits are already getting a large amount of help anyway. They've already got free school meals, they've already got this, that and the other. It's the middle-class people that are routinely and consistently ignored, but they are the people that contribute to this country the most. And that is why we're going to start having riots, because hard-working people...
Do you think we're going to see middle-class riots? Have you been down to Curry's and seen a TV that you want for when it all kicks off?
People are going to be smashing Waitrose Prosecco bottles over people's heads.
No, but I think...
Look, I think from what you just said, the real reason why this is a headline, effectively, is because it's been deferred by the current Prime Minister. I mean, he's denied all responsibility to do anything, basically, since he knew he was leaving. I refuse to say or do anything prime ministerial until the next person takes over, and it's their problem.
Yeah.
And now Truss, obviously, I mean, is having to put a hand in the air and say, well, I'm planning to do something, because people are terrified, people are worried, and people deserve answers. But yes, the tax route is the obvious way to go if you're talking about companies that are making such a huge amount of money.
The media have been complaining that the Prime Minister hasn't been present. Well, first, you know, it could be argued that it would be, you know, wrong for the Prime Minister to make any decisions when he's not going to be.
I think it'd be nice if he was at least in the country.
If he has some skin in the game, he's still the Prime Minister.
Just act like he's still Prime Minister. Just slightly, just turn up to your own farewell tour. You know what I mean? That's all I'm asking for. Just turn up to your own farewell tour.
One minute the media wanted him gone. We want to get rid of Boris. We don't want to see him. The next minute, where are they? Where's Boris? Where's Boris?
Correct.
You wanted him gone, so you can't mind that we have no Prime Minister in one of the worst...
Genghis, I'm going to come to you. What do you think?
Back me up, Genghis. Come on.
I think you're totally right on that point. I mean, but the bottom line is though that because he was made to feel disenfranchised, possibly by the mainstream media, he's basically now not doing his prime ministerial duty, and this is where, you know, the popularist power of the mainstream media.
Yes.
Where in the modern age, what it's doing to politics and how it affects all of us, it has very real consequences.
Yeah.
And these are things that aren't really sort of thrown on the table and viewed enough with love of a head.
A long time ago, I said that it was wrong to get rid of the Prime Minister in the economic crisis that we had, and it was a bad idea, and it would be one of the greatest acts of self-harm that we've ever seen in this country. And I was vilified. Well, guess what? I was right.
I don't think you've been proven right, but. We're going to move on to the Independent. I don't think Boris would be the person to get us out of a crisis like this. Maybe the person who led us into it. But moving on to the Independent, we've got billions set to be cut from foreign aid projects. So charities overseas are warning of a crisis as funds have been diverted to help refugees in the UK. But I mean, technically. Foreign aid going to refugees in this country makes sense because they're the foreign people who've come to the UK seeking asylum, so they need our aid, they need our help.
I'm assuming all that money's been spent on weapons to be sent to Ukraine.
Yeah, which is what I'd like. I wish there was a box I could tick for all my money.
We're making up the cash somehow.
Would you actually? I think that, you know, people are getting very, very angry now seeing billions of pounds being sent to Ukraine while Mr. Zelensky's doing a Vogue photo shoot over there, and we're all freezing to death in this country now.
Well, Sophie, I mean, what's happening in Ukraine is happening to Western Europe. So even though we're sending weapons, we're not sending people. It's Ukrainian men who are dying on the battlefield there to keep Putin away from our border. So, I mean, I think we should respect.
Do you think it's going to cut it?
Do you really think Putin wants to attack the United Kingdom?
Absolutely. Nobody stopped him. Hitler didn't stop it.
That's right. So nobody stopped him in 2014 when he took the Crimea. No one stopped him when he took the eastern Ukraine. All of a sudden, we are stopping him now.
Yeah, because he tried to take the whole country.
But the sanctions aren't working, and the sanctions are what making people poorer in this country, but they're not working because the ruble is at the best it's ever been.
So you think we should just bow down to this murderous dictator and say, oh, Putin, oh, Mr. Putin, we need your gas so much.
It's not working. It's not working.
We'll let you take the whole of Eastern Europe.
The bottom line is, it's not working. It's not working.
But the sanctions are working. They're long.
I'd possibly say that it's not working because we're not being tough enough.
The only people we're suffering is ourselves, the people in this country.
That's a nonsense. I mean, what we should be doing is stopping Russian visas throughout the Western world.
I agree. The golden visas, isn't it? They're called.
And tourist visas.
Tony Blair, isn't
it? Russians shouldn't be allowed. You know, Russians are still
the general Russian public. The basic.
Yeah. I mean, we say the general Russian public. Most of the Russian public are too poor to travel. So this would be hitting the middle class in Russia, who really need to be, told that, what is happening is unacceptable, and the rest of the world.
Hang on, wait, I've got a question though. If we can ban Russian tennis players and we can ban Russian athletes and do this against Russian people, how is that right? But we're not allowed to go to all Germans and blame them for the Holocaust, and we're not allowed to go to all Muslims and blame them for terrorism. Why should we blame all Russians for Russia?
You think we didn't do anything to stop Hitler? We literally bombed Germany.
In terms of Russian people, so for example, if we say, if you walk past a Muslim in the street and say, you're all terrorists, that's wrong. So why should we go up to a Russian and say, well, you're responsible for this war, even though they've got nothing to do with it?
It's not about that. Sanctions don't work like that. It's alerting Russians to the fact that their leader...
I think they're already alerted, most of them.
They can't... No, honestly, in Russia, the state propaganda that everybody reads, they're told that the war is just. And a lot of people believe it. This would be a message to everybody that this isn't acceptable. So, you can't holiday in Turkey, you can't holiday in France. And this is something that you've got to deal with. It would sow some dissent in Russia and make Putin less popular, which would be a valid. I'm so supportive of Putin, to be honest. But
I don't think they've got a choice. It's effectively a dictatorship. If these athletes are denouncing Russia, they will get killed and their families will get killed. You can't blame these people for not
Do you think everybody should bow down Bow down to the dictator in case something bad happens. Anyway, moving on to the Telegraph. We've got the Prime Minister saying, don't give up on green energy. Well, it's a great time to bring it up for us. I mean, maybe if you'd not, kowtowed to the green energy lobby so much, we wouldn't be in this mess. We've also got a picture of Gabriel Byrne, who's starring in a solo show based on his memoirs. And apparently online customers get the best bank saving rates, which is a bit unfair on older people who can't work the websites. And Sussex's may miss the Queen amid dispute over security. So this is coming back again.
God. You know what? These guys left because they wanted no publicity, and all I have heard from is Harry and Meghan. Go away, do us a favour.
Well, yeah, but they're not writing the paper. They're not writing the headlines.
Oh, come off it. You don't think that they're setting themselves up because they're PR masters. All they want to do is get their heads in the papers. Come on.
I'm looking forward to the Harry and Meghan single. I was thinking it would be something along the lines of, when Kylie Minogue and Jason Donovan did the thing.
Are they bringing a song out?
So you think the Sussex...
Wouldn't you assume it's to come?
Well, yeah, they've had the podcast.
If it's not this year, it'll be next year, but it'll happen. The video will be amazing, trust me.
But their dispute is around security, because they want to pay the police to provide security. But obviously the police you can't charter the police.
Well, they're too busy arresting people who've been saying bad things on Twitter.
They're too busy doing Macarena to look after them, I'm afraid. If they want the Macarena police force, they can have them at this point. I've given them.
Moving on to the Daily Express, we've got millions facing hardship with the end of cash in 5 years. So yeah, this means basically within 5 years everybody's paying contactless now, and in fact so many places you go into you can't spend.
It means every time
you like cash?
Yeah, I love cash. Cash is king. I love the anonymity of cash. I like the idea that people are not going to be tracking me when I'm spending my cash. I use contactless, of course I do, but for me this is, once we lose the cash, it is the gateway to digital ID.
Yeah.
It's definitely the gateway, the culmination of the surveillance society. I think we'll rue the day we don't have cash in our pockets.
Absolutely. And with digital cash, I mean, once the state gets involved, and you've seen in China, the state can control who has access to bank accounts, and in Canada as well, there was somebody who donated to the truckers, she was a single mother, had her bank account frozen, and that's in a supposedly, Western liberal democracy.
You can see it with GoFundMe and certain accounts when, protests or movements don't agree with the establishment ideal, they will get shut down. In Canada, they got their bank account frozen. And now, yes, you can look at China and say, well, we're not ever going to be like China, but look at Canada. They are people who are supposedly a democracy, and there will come a point where you put your chip and pin in that machine.
China, democracy?
Sorry, no, Canada.
Oh, sorry.
And you'll put your chip and pin machine and say, sorry,
difference.
your card is declined because of your political views. But another thing they don't want to talk about, and I'm going to play the left at their own game because I enjoy doing that sometimes, is the impact that it will have on certain communities. And one of those communities is the Gypsy Traveller community, because they tend to use all of their work and all of their transactions tends to be cash in hand.
Right.
And those sorts of industries...
Must make their tax return very complicated.
Yes.
Why are you laughing?
It would be bad for those sorts of communities. And for old people, like my nan loves to pay in cash. She doesn't like using card. They don't like going to the bank.
So when you have cash, you're not in debt.
And for young people as well, using cash is important, because a lot of young people can be quite credit card happy and get themselves, as he said, in a lot.
So with cash, you can limit it by just sticking 50 quid in your pocket. You can't spend more than 50 quid. Moving on to The Guardian, there's some bad news. Black and Asian cancer patients wait longer for diagnosis. That could be some of the systemic bias we were talking about earlier. But also some good news. Lovely picture there. It's carnival time. So joy returns to Notting Hill streets after COVID absence. There's been no carnival for 2 years. Now it's back. Todd, have you ever attended the Notting Hill Carnival?
Yeah, many times. Many times.
I've loved the old carnival too myself.
It's a cool thing. I mean, there's possibly, more aggro certain years than others. But anything that's an excuse to bring community together and do stuff as a community is a wholesome thing. For it to ever be painted as anything but that. I fear maybe The Guardian might apply slightly more significance to it than it deserves, but for political and ideological reasons. But the bottom line is the community getting together and partying. And a bit more of that would probably solve a lot of society's ills.
Yeah, brilliant. And then finally, the Daily Star, always with the important news, drink bog water.
Oh, that's
and it's got somebody with a peg on their nose. I don't know where they get that clothes peg, unless they're just they're a tiny person who's a foot high. But yeah, apparently we're gonna recycle sewage to make drinking water. I thought that already happened.
I actually saw a Guardian article with a similar sort of headline that says, you know, Brits are going to have to get accustomed and be less squeamish about drinking sewage water. I'm not drinking sewage water.
I assumed we were drinking sewage water already.
They want us to eat bugs and drink poo-infested water and all of this. I'm sorry, this is not, you know, Build Back Better. It's not sounding exactly very better.
It sounds like a protest blues song waiting to happen. But first they forced us to eat shit, now they're getting us to drink piss.
Good plug.
OK, so that's the papers. Coming up, we're going to discuss how often should you shower? And tonight's Great British Game Show is inspired by Lewis Hamilton. See you in 2 minutes.
Oh, no.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan Tonight with me, Leo Kearse, and I'm joined by Sophie Corcoran, Blue Peter badge winner, Chris Akabusi, Olympic medal winner, Todd Sharpville, who you won an award for.
Yeah, but we don't like to talk about it.
Yeah, he did, but he doesn't like to talk about it. And Genghis, who's best in class, the dog. There. Now, moving on to our next story. A man has been dumped by his partner weeks after they won £3.6 million on the lottery. They won £10,000 a month for the next 30 years and celebrated with a novelty cheque together. But that seems to have gone out the window. To make things worse, Kirk Stevens had been letting Laura... So basically what happened was Laura Hoyle she ran off with the money, and Kirk Stevens, her partner, had been letting her live in his house rent-free on the condition that she bought the lottery ticket. So her only expense was the lottery ticket. Everything else he was paying for. And then when she won, despite the giant cheque having both their names on it, it was bought with Miss Hoyle's account, so she has the right to the money. So should she have to share this money, and what would you have done? Split and run with from the missus or Mister? I'll come to you, Todd. Would you have
Well, you're talking about a breakup, and in breakups, the missus always runs off with all the money. Isn't that supposed to be the
Yeah.
I thought that was a cultural norm.
But normally that happens after the breakup.
Yeah, I know, but we're living in modern progressive times. I mean, why shouldn't we speed it up and make it before you've even made the money?
Yeah, and there's an issue here, I'd say, with there's almost a financial exploitation of men, which I know happens in relationships. For all we talk of feminism and equality, quite often, men are expected to pay for first dates. I mean, luckily I'm Scottish, so nobody makes that assumption about me. But Chris,
So I mean, we've got basically one side of the story, Mr. Stevens' side of the story. We don't know how long she lived with him, whether she lived with him consistently, whether she did agree to the idea that it's in my name, but whispered it 50-50. It seems to me, actually, he's a jilted lover.
Yeah.
And he's tried to get a little bit more than she's willing to give, and she's done a runner. And you know what? It's tough. Tango Sierra.
Should have married someone else.
Tough pieces.
See, no, I don't think. I think we'd have a different. I think the entire society would have a different view on this if it was the man that ran away with the money.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
if the man ran away with the money, everyone would be up in arms.
Well, if it was a middle-aged white man who ran away with the money, then they'd be seriously shitting bricks.
I genuinely think, I kind of agree with you that women get away far too much with stuff in relationships. And a lot of time, women are some of the most horrible and the most spiteful people in relationships, and yet somehow they make themselves be the victim.
But we don't know that about this guy. We don't know the scenario. Basically,
in this,
she's won the lottery. She's put her money down. She's won the lottery, and she's looked at him and think, you know what, I can do better than you, and she's done one.
That's not a good attitude.
Yeah, but the story we were presented with is she bought the ticket for both of them because they were a couple at the time.
Yeah,
right?
but that's what he's saying. You've not heard from her.
One has to assume that when you're in a relationship, you're living together.
No, you don't.
Whoever buys the ticket,
He was courteous enough to help her out and to support her. So you would think that a normal, kind human being would behave in
I think
the same way back.
this is one of those stories that involves other people's dirty laundry, basically.
Yeah, this is what belongs to
up on the clothes pegs outside.
kind of story.
We're all going to point to the stains on the sheets and make our personal judgments about them.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, I play blues music. We're not supposed to have any money.
Yeah, and this would be a classic. This would be a classic blues song.
It would be. I mean,
woke up this morning, my missus ran off with.
We won the lottery, yay! Then she took the money. The point is, we're not supposed to have any money. Eric Clapton wore Armani suits through a few gigs he did back in the 80s.
Yeah.
People are still complaining about it now.
Right.
So, this is what happens to other people. I'm not supposed to have an opinion or anything else because I'm supposed to be poor.
Yeah. Well, it's time to play the Great British Game Show. We've got some pictures of Formula One driver Lewis Hamilton, which have surfaced, which look to be knitted fashion ensemble ahead of the Belgium Grand Prix this weekend. The fashion police are calling it a fashion disaster. So my game tonight is Fashion Fails, where I will show some bizarre fashion choices, and my panel has to guess which celebrity they belong to. So, starting off, which celebrity wore this dress?
The Bacon Girl.
The 2010...
Lady Gaga.
Yeah, it's got to be Lady Gaga.
It is Lady Gaga. It is Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga.
But sadly, I'm going to dock you both a point for talking before I finished.
Oh,
asking the question.
so.
I'd have thought, seeing as you won a Blue Peter badge and you won medals, you'd know the rules.
Watch the chase. They've got.
We're not on the chase. Does this look like an ITV studio? We're on GBNews. We play by GB rules.
Leo's rules.
It's Leo's rules. That's right.
So I get the point.
Okay, let's get through a couple more. Who is this celebrity who wore a fully functioning chandelier to the 2019 Met Gala?
I feel like it's going to be Sia because she has a song called that, but I could be wrong.
It's not Sia.
Oh, boy.
Anybody else? It's Katy Perry.
Oh.
It's Katy Perry. And who's this male celebrity rocking what looks like a women's suit at the 2020...
Harry Styles, probably, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got to be.
It is Harry Styles. He's the type of guy who does stuff like that. And who's this celebrity couple that attended the Prince's Trust Capital Party together in 2000?
I wasn't born then. This ain't fair.
Yeah, but you can still see images from those times, the time before.
Oh, dear.
The pre-Sophie times.
But these days, I don't know, everyone's a celebrity, aren't they?
Yeah. No, these are proper celebrities.
Is it the Beckhams? Is it the Beckhams?
It's the Beckhams. Well done, Chris. Well done.
Get in!
And a former senior aide of a prominent political figure here in the UK.
Oh,
Dominic Cummings.
Well done, Dominic Cummings. And this celebrity launched her first range of equestrian clothing, KP Equestrian, at the Holborn Studios in 2008. Who is it?
Don't know.
No.
Question?
It's KP.
My missus would know.
Katy Perry? No,
Katie Price. Katie Price.
Katie Price.
Okay, that's unfortunately all we've got time for, and I can tell you that Chris is adding to his medal tally.
Get in, Sophie! Get
Thank
in!
you for watching tonight's Headliners. Is up next. I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday
God
night.
loves a loser.
In my defence, it was before I was born.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is looking cloudier than the weekend across the north and the east, but sunshine holding on elsewhere. Let's take a look at the details. Northern Scotland will start Monday morning on a cloudy note, with the risk of a few showery outbreaks of rain in places. Temperatures will be around 12 Celsius. A cloudy start for Northern Ireland, with the risk of some light rain. On the mild side, with morning temperatures sat around 15 Celsius. It will be a rather cloudy start for Northern England, with the risk of a few light showers. However, there will be some sunny spells. A mostly dry Monday morning across North Wales and the Liverpool Bay area, with some sunny spells developing. However, there may just be the odd light shower, most likely towards the coast. Monday morning is looking fairly dry and breezy across the East Midlands, with plenty of bright or sunny spells, though the sunshine will still be on the hazy side, winds staying light. Sunny spells from the word go for East Anglia this morning, though a few showers may be blown in on a fairly breezy northeasterly wind, temperatures around 16 Celsius. A largely dry and sunny start across southern England, though rather breezy along coastal stretches, the risk of an isolated shower in the far east. Temperature 14 to 17 Celsius. Cloud amounts increasing as we move towards lunchtime, the best of the sunshine holding on across the south. And that's how the weather is shaping up during tomorrow morning.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way.